You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. This episode of Pizza Quest is brought to you by Central Milling, hand-selected grain, expertly milled for passionate bakers. Central Milling is the farmer, the miller, and the baker working together to preserve American farmland for tomorrow while providing the highest quality flour and grains for the bakers of today. Dating back over 150 years, Central Milling is built on generations of knowledge, and they know that premium flour starts at the source. Employee-owned, Central Milling works directly with their farmers to sustainably grow grains that have exceptional flavor, nutrient content, color, and baking performance, which results in one of the largest selections of premium specialty flour and grains in the country. Hand-selected for the highest baking qualities, milled, cracked, or blended slowly to minimize heat generation, then bake-tested for performance. Learn more about Central Milling and their products at centralmilling.com. Welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt coming to you in this episode from Atlantic City, the Northeast Pizza, Pasta, and Artisan Bread Expo. And I'm sitting with Paul Lackey from Lloyd Pans. Now, a few years ago, if I had said I'm with Lloyd Pans, most people would say, what is that? But now it seems like everybody who makes pizza knows who Lloyd Pans is and are. And so, Lloyd, why don't you, for those few people who are listening who don't know about Lloyd Pans, tell us what Lloyd Pans is. I think you've also been Lloyd's been a sponsor of Pizza Quest, for a number of our seasons. So we really appreciate that. But tell us what Lloyd Pans does, what your product is, and then we're going to get into kind of like, okay, what's coming next?
Well, we're actually a manufacturer in the U.S., a rarity these days, of pizza pans, baked pans, many food service items designed specifically for things like speed cook ovens, any sort of oven. And we've decided that we want to be a premium product that delivers a high performance, that we try to be responsive to customers and deliver them not only the same old standards, but also any new trending items or specific custom things that people require to get the job done.
One of the cool things that is noteworthy, I think, of the company is when you say responsive to the customer's needs, is every time we come to a show, you've got something usually new, a new product that you can say, okay, the customers are saying we need a long pan, a party pan, or we need, something that's shaped this way instead of that way. And you're able to, most companies, it takes them like years of development before they can turn that around. You guys seem to turn those ideas around very quickly.
Well, we're a relatively small company in terms of the number of bodies, but that means we don't have a lot of administrivia overhead and nonsense corporalese to talk to get in our way, right? So we can see what the trends are. We can listen to what people come to us to and come up with something rapidly. It's much better to fail often and rapidly to get to the target sooner instead of try and have analysis paralysis and never get anything done.
Good point. But in order to do that, you have to make your own products, right? You have your own manufacturing?
We do. We have our own 120,000 square feet of manufacturing
and you're up in like Eastern Washington?
We're in Eastern Washington, in Spokane. And metal comes in one end and pans go out the other end. We're completely vertically integrated. All of our fabricating and all of our finishing and coating operations are all done in-house because I'm sorry, we just don't trust other people to do a really good job and certainly not be responsive to our customers' needs.
That's pretty cool. Many people know you because there's been a boom in these pan pizzas in the last few years, Detroit style and Sicilian style and focaccia style, all these different pizzas that are baked in pans as opposed to being baked directly on a hearth. So you came on most of our radars, I think, when the Detroit pizza boom kind of went nationwide. But you've been doing pans for a long time.
Well, we started with our quick discs, which were replacements for the lowest cost entry, the traditional expanded metal screen, which they work okay, but they don't last very long. And we came out with the alternative to that unfortunately for us was nearly infinitely durable and produced the same characteristics.
So once they had it, they never had to buy a replacement.
Yeah, it's a problem. I get people coming to the shows and they've been using the same product for 10, 15 or even more than 20 years and haven't had to replace it.
It's both a good thing and a business problem because you got to keep selling them new stuff.
We're unfortunately dedicated to giving the customer the best product we can, even if it means we don't get a lot of replacement sales because they wear out.
So typically, what are these pans and whether they're flat or 4-inch walls or 2-inch walls? What are they made from? How are they different from, say, in the Detroit world, everyone said a blue steel pan, but you don't do blue steel.
Well,
you do
no, we
else.
don't. Most of our products are aluminum. They're hard anodized, and then we have a proprietary mineral-like sealer that produces a pre-seasoning on the pan, and it's permanent. It doesn't wear out. You can wash it. You can clean it. You can use metal tools on it. We prefer you do. And Detroit's are a good example of something where the original blue steel pans simply became unavailable. Pick any one of the 10 stories about why that happened. And we looked at it and we said, well, we could build a product that would perform like that, but be done with the materials and processes we had. And we said, well, yeah, we should do that. And that is, since that rocket has been lit, it has just not stopped. It's a pan we're constantly making, and sometimes even have difficulty keeping in stock. There's just no end in sight to the Detroit pan ride.
Yeah. But again, does this aluminum anodized pan perform to the same?
Yes, you can.
Steel
and aluminum can both be used to make good pans. We got started in aluminum. Aluminum has the advantages that it doesn't rust or have any other, long-term storage or use issues. And we got started with it. Now, steel pans tend to be lighter in gauge because they're that strong enough. Aluminum has about half the strength of steel, so we have to use about 3 times the thickness.
So
that makes for a pan that has the equivalent thermal characteristics. As aluminum conducts more, but because we make it thicker, it works out that it conducts the same. So you can have your cake and eat it too, having a pan that doesn't rust or corrode, works well, is lightweight.
So once you figure out the equivalencies between how steel conducts heat and how aluminum does, then you basically can make the match.
Yes, we can design it to do whatever they want. We do have some customers that we build steel pans for. They're customs, and they have a very specific pan design, and they've been using a steel pan, and it actually has a non-stick fluoropolymer coating of all things, which I'm not sure that's a great thing for durability in a pizza environment, but that's what they've done. We replicated pans they could no longer buy. But that's another thing we do frequently is people come to us to say, I can't buy these pans anymore and mine are worn out. How do I replace that? So that's another example of responsiveness, is that we build what people need and what they want.
Is the aluminum material more affordable than the steel material? The pans, different
I think
prices.
it's about a wash. It's hard to say. If you buy a steel pan, you have to coat it in some fashion because it will rust. Just sitting around, it will rust. So it has to have some kind of protection.
It's not stainless steel we're talking about.
No. Stainless would be a horrible material for a cooking pan because it conducts heat about 1/5 as well as carbon steel does. So it's just terrible. I don't know why anybody wants a stainless steel pan, but for culinary use.
Shiny.
For culinary uses.
Yeah. So you've got we know that you've got them in different sizes and shapes, different wall heights and everything. So when somebody, first of all, we have like the consumers, and then we have the restaurant operators. Restaurant operators are going to buy a lot of pans at once. A consumer might want to buy 3 or 4 or 5 pans. How do the consumers, many of whom are listening, our listeners are consumers and enthusiasts, not just in the trade. How can they get your pans?
They simply go to lloydpans.com. We sell direct and online for the most part, and in most cases there are no minimum quantities. I don't think it's fair to make somebody buy a case of something just to find out it doesn't work.
So they can buy a few pans.
They can buy one of this, one of that, and one of the other thing in most cases.
And they buy direct from Lloyd, or do they go like through Amazon or something like that?
We have some pans are sold on Amazon, so that is another option.
But you've got your own commerce
we have our
site.
own lloydpans.com.
Well, that's good. That's the people I think prefer to buy direct from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
So that's good. So that's sort of like the bare bones info you guys need who are listening on how to partake of this. Go to the website, of course, for more detailed information and specs on all the sizes, shapes, and ideas. So while you're here, and I only have you for a few more minutes, I want to be able to pick your brain a little bit about, you guys are sitting in a unique position where you're not only manufacturing stuff, but you're getting requests from customers saying, okay, this is where the industry's going, I need this kind of a pan. What are you hearing and seeing for what we should be looking for to come next?
Well, the most recent one, I think, was what we call the bar pie shovel, where we saw this trend of the bar pies, the thin cracker.
That's been a big
crust,
trend this year.
And people were buying a regular tapered deep wall pan and cutting off most of the edge with tin snips.
Oh my gosh!
To make this tool, because I see the bar pies as really both a recipe, a technique, and in some cases the tool, because they had this specialized pan they made. So we came out, again, just as we saw with the Detroits, you couldn't buy that. Those tools aren't available. They're homemade by the user.
Right.
We said, well, let's offer 10, a 12, and a 14 inch in those sizes. And so now you can buy the tool without having to go through all that hassle and cutting your hands up. And
so the bar pie, for those who don't know, is a thin crusted, it's goes under different names, sometimes called a tavern pie.
Yep.
Or a pizza parlor. Shakey's Pizza Parlor was that style.
Yeah.
And Chicago's famous for their bar pizzas. And then, of course, the New York City, New Jersey area, famous for a couple of bar pizza.
They tend to be very thin, low hydration, crispy crust,
and
sometimes
people
cracker crust.
They love them because they're not bread. They're not a lot of bread. It's thin and crisp.
Yeah.
But not everybody loves them. And for a while, they were kind of fading out of popularity. And all of a sudden, they came back with a rush.
They did. And now you've got 3 or 4 people out there who are talking constantly on the subject. And we said, well, we need to make a tool for people to be able to do that like they're doing it in the bar, with whatever baking method they're using.
So you're starting to sell a lot of those then?
They're slowly ramping up. I suspect it's going to be like the Detroit, where once it gets traction and people see that they can have a tool, it'll probably go off pretty good.
Then it tips over and everybody wants them. Any other trends that you're seeing? You're spotting? What about how's the Roman pizza movement going?
Roman's been doing really well. Again, that's another case where the pans were only available as imports, and they were variable in quality. And sometimes the larger pan, the 40 by 60 centimeter, people complained about warping. So again, we said, well, we'll use our material and our process and come up with a product that we think will perform and deliver. And I haven't had any bad feedback on that pan at all.
So how does a Roman pan differ from a Detroit style pan? It's
it's thin. It's about a half-inch thick wall, straight-sided, and they're the very specific sizes, both 20 by 60 centimeter and 40 by 60. So we duplicated the classic Italian pan in all respects, except we've used a different material, and they're all pre-seasoned and ready to go, so you don't have the hassle of dealing with it.
Does that seasoning ever wear off?
Not really.
And are they dishwasher safe, or do you want to hand wash them?
I do not recommend machine washing because, unfortunately, there is no type of coated pan made anywhere at any time by anyone of any sort that is really safe to use in a machine washer, because those detergents are extremely corrosive and they will eat any coating.
Okay, so tip to everybody: don't put your coated pans in the dishwasher.
Not just mine, anybody's. They shouldn't go in a dishwasher.
Any type of pan, yeah. And if you are going to then hand wash it, which you should do, what I learned the hard way is don't use metal scrubbies. Use soft.
You don't need to in our case, at least, because the coating has very good cleanability and easy release.
But that coating will then stay. It's like they're not going to wear off from repeated washing.
I have a lot of people that have been using the same product for more than 15 years, and so it stinks to be me because I don't get to sell them replacements.
But even with the coating, do you still need to oil the pan or grease the pan?
Only if you need it for your pies construction. So like Detroit's often have a good amount of oil in the bottom.
Yeah, because it's like fry. You want to fry the bottom.
For a shallow fry kind of thing. Yeah. But it's not necessary for release. But it's
up
to your pie style and how you want it.
It's kind of like a non-stick pan in that regard.
We don't call them non-stick, but they are very easy release. They're like the best seasoned cast iron you've ever used, but you don't have to do any maintenance.
You don't have to keep re-seasoning it.
And you don't have to keep re-seasoning it. So they're just much more user friendly.
It's amazing. What I especially love about the company is that how responsive you are to what the industry is asking for and needing, and how quickly you can turn that wish into a product.
And we have sales, huge amounts of sales in the commercial side. I mean, probably 8 or 9 of the big major pizza chains use our products, and so they're constantly coming to us for
those unique, 8 or 9 are probably equal to like 90% of the rest of the
buyers. They come to us for unique and custom items because they need to, just like any individual does, they need to differentiate their products from their competitors. And we're arms merchants. We sell to all sides.
You're ecumenical. You're Switzerland. Swiss Army Pam. We'll do it all. Well, Paul Lackey, thank you so much for being on. Before you leave, any other trend thoughts that you're seeing?
People are wanting to try many different variations on a theme, it seems like, right? Just because Detroit was done in a certain way, that doesn't mean it's always going to be done that way. So I think there's a lot more interest. Things like books like yours and others who've come up with all these different things has opened a whole new world to a lot of prosumers, I would call them.
Prosumers.
Who are fanatic amateurs.
Yes.
And that some of those people, I've had many people at this show come up and say, I'm planning on opening a store and I'm doing all my research, and it's all driven, I think, by the desire to have that unique thing. So as Tom Lehman used to say, pizza is just flatbread with toppings.
That's right.
And I'll elaborate on that to say that the dough can be from A to Z and toppings from 0 to infinity.
Absolutely.
So
true.
You get to make it the way you like it, or the way you think your customers are going to like it, and that is that willingness to experiment and explore different variations in the theme that there's no best pie. There's just a universe of all equally delicious but different pies.
I always say there's no perfect pizza, there's perfect pizzas. and what's cool about coming to shows like this is every year you see that, sort of the new iterations. This year there's a Roman pizza category in the competition. A few years ago nobody even knew what Roman pizza was.
Exactly.
So, Paul, continued best of success at Lloyd Pans. Thank you for producing great products and for your support of Pizza Quest. And thank you for joining us today on Pizza Quest.
Thank you, Peter.
And thank you all for listening to another episode of Pizza Quest. We'll see you next time on another episode. Bye-bye and thanks.
Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.